morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the webinar this morning. This is related to the new strategic plan for higher education for Texas. It's called 60x30TX. My name is Ginger Gossman here at the coordinating board. I am here with several of my colleagues. We will introduce ourselves momentarily. Just want to let you know a few logistical items. One, you can hear the audio through your computer, but it is better if you dial in through your phone. You'll get a better signal. Also, when we get to the Q&A portion of the webinar, please use the bar that says Q&A. You have another option for a bar that says chat, but we'll only be monitoring the bar that says Q&A. So what we're going to start the webinar is present to you an overview of the plan, and we will move on to the Q&A section. So we begin with the
The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board is in the process of developing the state's next long-term strategic plan for higher education. The success of achieving the goals of this plan is going to rest heavily on collaboration among higher education, public education, and the workforce. We need to work together much more closely than ever before. The current strategic plan for Texas higher education, Closing the Gaps by 2015, is coming to an end this year. It has been a very successful plan for the past 15 years. Accomplishments during Closing the Gaps up to 2014 include the following. First, over 2.6 million students completed a certificate, associate, or bachelor's. Second, Texas public institutions invested $42.8 billion in research and development, supported by federal, state, local, institutional, and private sources. Third, state legislators allocated $3.3 billion in Texas grants to support low-income students in higher education. Fourth, close to 170,000 students graduated with nursing degrees, and nearly 126,000 students graduated with engineering degrees. These are all graduates contributing to high-demand fields that might not have without the initiatives that came out of Closing the Gaps. Now we are looking forward to the next 15 years as we design a plan that establishes a globally competitive workforce in Texas by 2030. In March 2014, the Coordinating Board created the Higher Education Strategic Planning Committee, which is comprised of education and business leaders from across Texas. This committee is collaborating with Coordinating Board staff on the development of the next higher education plan for the state. Since then, the committee has received expert testimony from individuals from across the state, the U.S., and from around the world. The final plan will be presented to the Coordinating Board on July 23rd for adoption. The new draft plan, 60x30TX, is firmly founded on the critical need that Texas produces an educated workforce that is able to adapt to change and compete at the highest levels, nationally and internationally. The world's most competitive workforces have younger populations with more education compared to the U.S. and compared to Texas. 60x30TX emphasizes all forms of post-high school education, from certificates to associate and bachelor's degrees to graduate and professional education. And also highlights the overarching goal that 60% of Generation Texas will have a post-secondary credential or degree by 2030. 60x30TX will build on the success of Closing the Gaps. We don't expect work that began with Closing the Gaps to end. We expect those accomplishments will continue, and that 60x30TX is the beginning of a new series of accomplishments. We anticipate this pattern of building on successes will be true well into the future. The Strategic Planning Committee has developed 4 student-centered goals. The first deals with educational attainment, which is a fraction of the Texas population actually holding a degree or certificate. The second goal deals with degree and certificate completion at Texas colleges and universities. The third goal highlights the need for students to know they have marketable skills. The fourth goal recognizes the need to address student debt. The first and overarching goal is, by 2030, at least 60% of Texans ages 25 to 34 will have a post-secondary credential or degree. This is a big percentage to shoot for because right now only about 38% of Texans in this age group have any kind of post-high school degree or certificate. The best educated societies in the world have already reached 60%. Or to it in this age group. This includes our northern neighbor and international competitor, Canada. We need to move the level of attainment up dramatically among young Texans. The new plan calls for realistic interim targets and strategies that will get us to our final goal if we stay on course through 2030. Critical to achievement is the focus on and success in improving the education level of young Hispanic Texans who will make up a majority of the students in school between now and 2030. Is the 60 by 30 goal important? There has been a huge increase in the percentage of jobs that require some form of post-secondary education or training. In 1973, only 28% of all jobs required education beyond a high school diploma. According to the Center on Education and the Workforce at Georgetown University, 65% of all jobs will require post-secondary education by 2018, including 59% of all jobs in Texas. The simple truth is that the 21st century workforce will require more education and more skills, not less, and the competition globally will be tough. These projections are a key reason why the Coordinating Board is pursuing funding for strategies and other higher education initiatives designed to better align higher education with the workforce and boost the production of post-secondary educated workers. The next goal reads, by 2030, at least 550,000 students in that year will complete a certificate, associate, bachelor's, or master's from a Texas public, independent, or for-profit college or university. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics make clear that students don't get much of an economic lift from college attendance unless they complete a degree or certificate. We can do better at this than what we're doing now. Under Closing the Gaps, Texas has been able to generate impressive growth in degree and certificate production. We need to continue that record. The plan includes targets for Hispanic Texans earning 285,000 certificates or degrees in 2030. The plan includes other specific targets, and we encourage everyone to read through this carefully. Another important target is to increase the percentage of students who enroll in higher education directly after high school from the current 53% to 65%. The third goal reads, by 2030, all graduates from Texas public institutions of higher education will have completed programs with identified marketable skills. The goal calls for every institution in Texas to articulate how it prepares its students to succeed after completion. All programs develop skills of value in the marketplace. The plan requires institutions to formally identify those skills for each of its programs so that students are aware of and can communicate these skills to future employers. Fourth goal is, by 2030, undergraduate student loan debt will not exceed 60% of first-year wage for graduates of Texas public institutions. We have an opportunity to balance student loan debt and improve how higher education is financed to reduce financial barriers that students and families encounter when pursuing any level of higher education. We think the best way to focus on financial issues is to set the goal of maintaining debt load as measured against student earning power at graduation. Success will require collaboration among elected officials and higher education leaders, and will probably require imaginative reinvention of paths for students and methods for teaching and learning. The 60x30 text plan must be bold. If we aren't bold, we will lose ground in having an educated population. If we lose ground, we will lose our competitive edge in the global marketplace. This will affect institutions and their students. Great universities are built by great economies. Bold, projected personal income will not keep pace with inflation or with the cost of living. The 60x30 text plan is bold. It rests on careful assessments of the possible. We have set challenging goals and targets to meet the genuine needs of Texas and Texans by 2030. We need everyone to review the plan and provide comment before it is sent to the coordinating board for approval. We have an online tool for stakeholders called College Town Hall Texas that enables you to participate in the discussion. This interactive website is hosted by the coordinating board and provides an opportunity to share ideas, respond to new initiatives, and join the dialogue on the future of higher education in the state. Stakeholders, including you, legislators, business leaders, faculty, administrators, students, parents, and educators, can help shape future policy as Texas works to become a national and international leader in higher education. Question and answer session will begin shortly. Thank you.
That is the overview of the 60x30 text plan. At this point, we're going to open it up for questions. We do have a brief PowerPoint that we can review also. Feel free to start asking questions if you'd like. Also, we will introduce ourselves here at the coordinating board. My name is Ginger Gossman, and I am in the Academic Plan Policy Division.
I'm Julie Eklund, and I'm in the Strategic Planning and Funding Division.
Paul Turk, Strategic Planning and Funding.
Down, Strategic Planning and Funding.
Rex Feebles, Academic Quality and Workforce.
Jarrell Oker, College Readiness and Success.
Chris Singer, College Readiness and Success.
Okay, terrific. Well, we have a number of you who are tuned in this morning, so again, feel free to ask questions. What we will do is provide a little bit more information about this particular goal, the very first goal called 60x30.
Morning. We're going to start by talking about this goal, which is the 60x30 goal. It is one of the 4 goals, and it kind of is overarching. We do understand that institutions do not have complete control over this goal, but we think it's important for the state. Basically, what we want is 60% of the young adults, which the training is 25 to 34, will have a post-secondary credential by 2030. And that is an educational attainment. So it includes those individuals who move in from out of state or get their degree or certificate in Texas. Next slide. This slide shows why it is so important. If you look at where Texas was and the United States for the 55 to 64 age group, which is the dark blue line or blue bar, we were actually pretty close to being above most of the other countries, and this is using OECD data. And then look at the green bar, which is the 25 to 34 population. We're behind quite a few nations. So we really want to stress that we want our young adults to get to where we were and lead internationally, not just within the U.S. This talks about where we have been, and if you look at the black line, that is the growth that Tech will need in order to get to the 6% of the population, of the 25 to 34 population by 2030. If you look at the solid red line, that line takes the average of the 5 highest years and project that out. The dotted red line actually shows the lowest increases and changes and projects that one up. So as you can see from the black line, we actually need to do better than we have ever done in the highest year. So this is very much a stretch goal. And so that's why it's so important that we work on this together. This one just shows the interim targets for this goal because we know we're not going to get it 60% in the next 5 years. So this is kind of a phase-in moving forward. And that's how we've kind of broken it down. We're currently at about 38%. So we do have quite a bit, 10%, so we're moving up very rapidly in this projection, or in our goal in the interim benchmarks of where we're trying to get to. This is really the overarching, and as I said, we do understand that it's going to include having to make sure we not have an economy that's robust enough to attract people from out of state that have degrees and certificates, but also provide jobs for those that get their degree and certificates in state so that they stay in state. So this is very much an overarching goal. And dropsies here. So currently we don't have any questions. So if anybody has questions, please type them up.
And I'm going to jump in because one question that we're frequently asked has to do with how we are calculating post-secondary educational attainment in terms of who's included and what data we're using. And so I'm going to ask Paul if he can provide a little bit more detail, and I'll jump in and help him with this in terms of included in this category of citizens who have post-secondary educational attainment for this goal.
This includes certificates, associate degrees, baccalaureate, master's, professional practice, and doctoral degrees. Ours for educational attainment is the American Community Survey from the Census Bureau, but the American Community Survey only includes associates and above. Collect associates and above 25 to 34-year-olds, but we can't get the certificates, which means we had to come up with a pre until the Census Bureau starts to ask that question. Rather including kids in some college, but we couldn't really use that field to estimate it. So what we did was we went with a really simple proxy. We looked at the number of certificates that Texas institutions are granting in comparison to the number of associate's degrees they are granting in the year that we're pulling the number for. And we take that ratio and we apply it to the educational attainment percentage of associate's degrees. So if we were to award the same number of certificates and associate's degrees in 2013, the educational attainment for 25 to 34-year-olds was 25% in that year, then we would say that the educational attainment for certificates was also 25%. If we awarded half as many certificates as we did associate's degrees, then we would say 12 to 13% educational attainment for certificates.
Yes, this is a pretty straightforward proxy, but we did look at some other data, some national data, and some other information to make sure that that made sense in terms of what we were using to estimate the certificates in this population.
5 years, the Census Bureau does a survey called SIP. And that does ask the question about certificates. And we, with that is unfortunately not a Texas survey, it's a national survey, but we saw nationally that was running at about 8%. And we see this process generating about the same number for Texas, maybe just a little bit lower.
And can you talk a little bit about how students from out of state, or I should say individuals who have earned degrees from out of state fit into this particular goal, who come into Texas after they've completed their education?
So every people who complete a degree, they're very mobile at that point. The Census Bureau accounts for both those who come to state and leave the state. So fortunately, we don't have to do any kind of an adjustment for migration with the numbers from the Census Bureau. But in projecting out these targets, we do have to look and see what we thought the should be based on people moving in and out. And we basically just used a proxy for that as well.
Thank you. As we discussed, there are some differences between the completion goal, which includes certificates, associates, bachelor's, and master's, and the 60x30 goal, which includes all levels of educational attainment, includes those professional degrees as well. And I point out that that's another piece. And those of you who may want to know more detail about this, we're happy to provide information.
Well, there's a more fundamental difference between those two goals. This particular goal is everybody in the state where they may have received their degree.
Correct.
Whatever time.
Yes.
The goal is only students completing in Texas in that year.
Correct.
So that focus directly on the efforts of our colleges and universities in Texas, whether public or private.
Correct. We actually are going to be having a webinar.
All ages.
Yes. All ages, whereas this 60-30 goal, of course, is the young adult population. And we'll have a webinar about the completion goal, I believe, tomorrow. So we'll be talking about that in more detail then, but it's important to understand there are differences between these two goals. Thank you. And David Gardner, who just joined us, PD Commissioner. Well, we're still waiting for questions from our participants.
We'll stick around for another couple of minutes, and then, here's one.
We have a question. How will strategies be developed to meet these goals? What are the next steps?
In the plan, which is already posted on the Coordinating Board website, there are some strategies listed for meeting these goals. They're very broad. One is to make sure that we have the robust economy and that sort of thing. But we're going to lift those up real quick. The strategies that we put forward are very broad strategies because we understand that not every institution should do things the same way. So we really want institutions to be working at what's going to work best, doing what's going to work best for your institution. That's going to be the biggest part of it, is what y'all are doing. Your institution that would be helpful for these and working for the developing programs that are going to help the workforce, either your local region or across the state. The strategies are now on your slide, should be, and I have enough to read them. And I'll bring them over to you. Okay.
Just to follow up on Susan's getting closer to those, that's her point. As with closing the gaps, we only develop strategies that and statewide. And the philosophy in the plan is that each individual institution has real differences and exert creativity in helping us to achieve the goals. So the strategies are things that really are state level. And for this particular goal, statewide, I mean, this goes beyond the institutions of higher education. It involves all sectors of the state in terms of helping us to achieve this particular goal. The last goals focus much on institutions themselves.
The strategy is to respond to the needs of the changing population of Texas so students are supported through higher education. So that's basically working with students of all levels. So you've got, students going straight from high school, getting adult education, students back to school, those students who have stopped out. So it's across the whole thing. Quality adult education. So some of the examples, going down to the next strategy, and that was it. The only strategy we have for this one. Like I said, it's very broad. Working out those critical fields, so working with the workforce in your area and across the state to make sure that the students you're producing, whether they know what they want to go into or not, are able to provide what types of marketable skills, which is another one of the goals that we had a webinar on last week. And I think we have another question that says, will this video and the presentation on student debt be available for me to share with other administrators in the college? And I believe it is already online.
Yeah, those materials are already posted, and if you'll look at the screen, I can navigate you through that. But I'm also going to be, we have the email addresses of everyone who has tuned into a webinar so far, and I'll be sending this link to everyone on Thursday after the final webinar, which is tomorrow at 10 on the completion goal. After that concludes, I'll be sharing this link with everyone. Go to our main website, close the apps. On the far, click on the Higher Education Strategic Planning Committee. Admin page, the webinar materials, and it's posted there. And we'll update this site as we cycle through our webinars. You're welcome.
Another question that came, why is the target for 2020 increased 10% more than in 2015, and the other 5-year targets increase only 6%? Paul, you can speak to that.
So we do get this a bit. Actually, 38% is not for 2015. There's a lag in the American Community Survey data. Right now we have 2013 data. So what you're seeing, that 10% is the difference for 7 years. And 6% for the other two is also a little bit lower per year because we think that those final percentage points are going to be harder to get to. As we increase the percent attainment, it's a little bit more difficult to reach.
I have a question.
So I have another question. Should or can higher education institutions collaborate or contract with businesses or organizations in the community to support some of the goals, such as training, information, and advising on marketable skills, critical fields, and making education skill connections?
There are 3 things across the plan that address this in one way or another. Under this particular goal, we're about working with the Texas Workforce Commission to identify critical fields as we go forward and that they change. Under marketable skills, we talk about developing a statewide group that meets annually I think of it as more or less of a learning community in terms of businesses, institutions getting together, and neither group telling the other one what to do, but determining what type of skills are really needed and what are missing as you go forward. And then the third one is to develop in local areas relationships, local regions, relationships with businesses, institutions to do just what you're talking about, but also that in a way that best fits the needs of your regions. You know, one thing we do know is that business and industry is very different, and this is from one region to another. The needs are very different, and I with the Commissioner of Education and a commissioner from the Workforce Commission, we were in the Panhandle, and the biggest shortfalls there were two shortfalls. One was new grads actually being able to talk to customers, being comfortable with that. They were very uncomfortable with that in that region of the state. And secondly, at a lower level, just some basic mathematical skills for people, high school, which isn't directly higher education's concerns, and you have very different issues. And when we were in Midland, Odessa, they were different than that, and they're different in Houston. So these are things that reflect the local industry, the people that are being produced by high schools before they go to college, and so they're right on target, I think.
The next question is, so what are the next steps the coordinating board will be taking?
Our committee will be looking at the plan. The first thing is, the remarks in the field are due May 29th. So the staff will be summarizing those and sharing them with our strategic planning committee, which meets on June 4th. So a very quick turnaround. We will be making any changes deemed necessary at that point, taking it to the board committee. And then July 23rd, it will go to the board as our policy issue, and our to the committee that's been preparing this will be there. It will be, we'll hear from Woody Hunt, the chair, and Larry Faulkner, the vice chair, and there are 18 members of the committee. Most of them are planning to be there, a few will not. So assuming the board develops the plan, then we begin the process of and spreading out across the state to make sure more people know this. I anticipate that we'll be meeting with various boards and regions to let them know. Our staff are prepared to, when they go to various professional associations in the state, to be able to talk with them about that. So the first will be a very intense process of people working things, assuming some of the strategies stay in place. We will be putting together the state committee, state group I just mentioned, to work with. We know that we're likely to be working with enrollment managers and others to develop a process for so students can readily understand their debt at an early stage and how they're building that up, along with their job prospects. TG has a committee that's working on that. We think that they have some recommendations will be the basis. So we'll go start full loan, and if you have to successfully help this go forward, we would appreciate.
I have a question. Will institutions be held accountable to this goal, and if so, how?
This goal?
Yes.
No, the state will be held accountable for this goal. And I've emphasized when we were talking to the committee from the beginning is our institutions could do a great job in producing graduates, but if the economy is a one, we will probably have a lot of students leaving the state. Firstly, it's possible that if they aren't producing, we could be meeting this goal simply because the economy is thriving and we're attracting so many people into the state. So this is one that we know that you have to look at differently than the other goals.
This isn't not something that we can track by institution, but it might be something that we'll be looking at regionally. A feel for that, but it's not something we can specifically track by.
It will be state goal.
Oh, a state goal. I'm sorry.
State goal.
The state goal.
Yeah. But anyway, so everything saying we break them and look at it, and give you feedback as we need to, but instead of producing 500 plus thousand students in 20, we might, you guys may have produced 700,000, but we might not have achieved the state goal, and would not reflect on the institutions. It could reflect on simply there be no oil economy, there be no tech economy, listen, that happens.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you for tuning in, and this will be posted on the web with the other webinars that have been out there, and you're welcome to go back and listen to it, share them, share the link, all you want. The next one's, our last one will be on completion, the completion goal at 10 o'clock tomorrow.